Welcome everybody. My CCR presentation here. This is my first time doing anything like this, so I tend to talk fast. If I'm talking too fast or not making sense, just let me know. Ask questions, and here we go. I'm going to talk a little bit about myself, while not directly related to railroad, and kind of gives a bit of where my layout came from. I grew up in the Chilcotin, which is an extremely remote area, farming community. Our nearest neighbor was 8 kilometers. We had no electricity, no telephone. This was like homesteading. The area is incredibly remote. It's a mountainous area. My first layout was at age 10, which would be 33 years ago last week. And I've had a continuous layout since then. It was a 4x8 on top of my bunk bed. So I had a bomb bunk. The train was on the top bunk. That layout lasted until I graduated high school. And then I transited for a few years, but I always had a layout at my grandmother's house in her basement, which is a switching layout in L shape. And then I got my own place. I've moved 3 times. Each layout has gone better than the previous over the 30 years, but I've always modeled the Chilcotin. The Chilcotin has no railways. The closest would be the old PG BCR in Williams Lake, which is a couple hours drive away. I'm a career roader with CN. I did a short tenure with CP, and Hunter Harrison chased me out. So, and it says here I got my notes here, but they're really poorly written. Okay, so my layout is HO scale, is a point to point layout over 2 decks. I have 4 kids, so I did build a continuous run option for just running trains for the kids and their friends, etc. It's based on, I think it's next one here. I'm going to skip that. The route is 3 different railways planned to build this route. So if you heard your old history books, the CPR had several courses, and they ended up going with the southern route through the Rogers Pass, which was reckless, and on and on and on. The other route was to go through the Chilcotin, coming across from about Fort Alexandria to Butte Inlet, along Butte Inlet, across 3 massive bridges to get onto Vancouver Island, finally terminating in Victoria. Obviously, this railway was never built, but in my fictional world, they got together, a group of businessmen, and started to build the railway with grand plans of building from Victoria, connecting to the Grand Trunk Pacific and Canadian Northern in the Jasper area. In the late teens, early 20s, Canadian National failed, Canadian Northern failed, the Grand Trunk Pacific failed, the PGE failed, and my railway failed, the CCR. The Canadian Northern and the Grand Trunk Pacific were taken over by the federal governments and merged. The PGE was taken over by the provincial government and semi-merged with the CCR, as they never actually connected. The CCR runs independently under its parent company, the PGE. I did this because getting custom logos and all that was beyond my means. So by making the PGE the parent company, I can use existing PGE equipment. The interesting thing about the PGE is it was called a railway that began and ended in the middle of nowhere. PGE went to Squamish, and then everything had to come in by barges and ships. And I've continued that with the CCR. All freight passengers comes up from Vancouver by barge or ship to Butte Inlet. And from Butte Inlet, it goes up the mountains to Tatla Lake. It exists on lumber, ore, and some cattle. The real Chilcotin has all of these. One of the largest copper gold deposits in Canada is not that far from my fictional right of way. For various political reasons, which I'm going to try to stay out of, it has never been developed and likely never will be. The other railways on the West Coast, the ENN, the CN, Tidewater Division, and there's at least a dozen industrial railways. There's used to be coal railways, logging railways, and the odd ore railway. They used to operate in all the little inlets all the way up the coast. My favorite was there was a railway on James Island that had standard gauge and narrow gauge. That was an explosives factory that lasted well after World War One. And I always thought it'd be a neat model, the narrow gauge, standard gauge with the barges. Be a fascinating little railway. But anyways, all this is gone now. There's a small section of ENN that still operates. The Eaglewood was the last logging railway that shut down 6-7 years ago after they had a very bad derailment that cost a couple lives. So I gotta thank my 11-year-old son for actually doing this drawing. He did a very good job. The double deck here. So on the left side there, you can see Waddington, which is the yard. I've gotten rid of all the industrial trackage just because it's too complicated. It goes around, loops, and then loops over to the Lillian Creek area and climbs up. So at this point, by the time it leaves Lillian Creek, it's gained 13 inches of elevation going to the second deck. I've always wanted a second deck, but I've detested helixes. I think they look ugly and they take up space. So I built this layout, modeled on a layout which I've lost track of. That was a Model Railroader magazine, where he was running long trains and it was a dog bone shape, and they just zigzagged slowly back and forth up the mountain to the second deck. It's a 2% grade. All the sidings are level, and I use 22 radius curves. I know it's not the most prototypical, but as I'm modeling the 30s, the shorter trains, and that I was willing to make that compromise and just not run big equipment. So I run consolidations in a 10-wheeler. Fortunately, all my consolidations are now gone because I trusted the wrong person. And yeah, they did not do what they said they were going to do, fixing them. And you see up here's the upper deck. There's some more loops. Tiernan is the top of the grade. It's 22 inches to the second deck. Keeps looping along through Horn Lake and into Tatla Lake there. And there's a sneak through, continuous run along the right side, the loops down to the Y at Tiernan. Eventually, there's going to be a town called Ham in the back corner there. One thing I'm really proud about this layout is it's all real places. If the name doesn't exist, I've used family names or something, kids, but I can trace the entire line on a real map, real crossings, river crossings, all that. I can say this is this location, it's this location, and I've traveled a good chunk of the route doing my research to get it as close as I can to the area. We have Waddington, which is the bottom deck there. And as you can see, Waddington there's nothing there. There's a resort, a fishing resort, and a seasonal logging camp. And beautiful glacial fjords, all that fun, lovely stuff. So you see, I have a yard, the barge connection. There's an ore transfer dock, bringing the ore down from several mines from the interior where they get loaded onto barges that go on to wherever they are to be. Can't think of the word, but you guys know what I mean, where they make the final products. I feel like I've been talking really fast. Any questions?
No, I think you're fine so far, Mike.
Okay. I feel like I'm going this way too fast.
Yeah. No.
Okay. So the next spot is Lillian Creek, which is in a narrow valley just south of Middle Lake. This area is owned by an American rancher, and he very values his privacy. He has about a 10-kilometer driveway, which he's locked. And a couple years ago, I managed to get the combination to the lock and went about 5-6 kilometers down his driveway. And as you can see in the top right corner there, it's very mountainous, very rugged. It would have been very challenging to build a railway through there. My Lillian Creek on the bottom right there, as I say, there is ugly. It's code 100 track, poor scenery. So there's very few pictures of that area, but it gives you an idea. It's on my list to redo. Top of the grade is Tiernan, and this is named after my son. There's a Y here and a small ore transfer. This is basically a top of the grade. Trains going before they drop over the edge. They would stop here, set their brakes, set retainers if required. And there's a Y there to change the helper engines, turn the snow plows, etc. With the branch heading off to future ham. I'll sometimes double trains to this point. So I'll run 2 trains. When they hit Tiernan, they'll drop the cars, and then a train will pick those up, double its length, and continue on to Tat the Lake from this point. Next is Horn Lake, which is a beautiful lake. If you ever get a chance to go camping here, it's gorgeous. And you can see there's an old switch stand, which I thought was really fitting, considering my railway's never been there, but there's the switch stand for my railway. There's a sawmill here, fuel track. I got pictures of the sawmill site there during till about the 70s. There was a sawmill here, and it is down from where my grade would be. So I put in a switchback to get down to the sawmill site. This section is actually modular, and the photo with no background or anything, there's actually 2 layouts ago. As you can see in the top right corner photo, there's now a backdrop and all that. And I've had to redo it a little bit because the original paper mache did not survive 2 trips, 2 moves, and new layouts. Now we finally get to the thriving community of Tatla Lake. And basically in that picture in the top left, that is the entire community. Of course, in my world, now that's the terminus to a railway, it's probably going to be quite a bit busier. There's a large sawmill there. The real sawmill closed in the 90s. Fuel dealerships, stockyards, freight house, engine house, and a Y, of course, for the engines. Tata Lake is also the railhead to, after World War II, was a large American Air Force base, Punxsy Mountain, which the Air Force base closed in about the 80s with the Pine Tree Line, if anybody knows that. That side of the history was a part of that. And then there's Ham. I don't know where this photo came from, but this is my inspiration for it. Ham is going to go in a really weird space. It's only about 16 inches wide, but about 4 feet deep. And it's narrow, going to fit between a wall and a backdrop. So my plan is to build this on the bench and then just slide it into place. Steep valley, and it's just going to go to the ore dock. Trains will shove up from the Y at Tiernan and then pull everything back down to the Y to do their switch moves. So that's my layout. That's the general layout. I'm going to operate with, I guess I should first say, I've had 2 operating sessions. Neither of them have been prototypical, to best put it. The few modelers in our area are far in between. And just running a train was new to most of my operators. So we haven't really brought in prototypical operations yet. I guess I now need to talk about the status of the layout. Unfortunately, about 6 months ago, I was being transferred from Quesnel to Kamloops. So the layout started getting torn down, and then CN changed their mind and said, "You're not transferring." Now they're talking about maybe I could transfer again. So the layout is this kind of weird limbo right now. The cars have been put away, the engine structures have been put away, the bench work is still there, the track is still there, but it'd take quite a bit to get it running again. The plan was to operate this with train, order, and control system. There's the train offices would be at Tiernan and Lillian Creek. There would be a train order book at Tiernan because it's the Y of the two branch line and the main line. To a lot of people I know in their layouts, when a train gets to the station, the OS, they'll call the dispatcher. I developed a system using RFID to let the dispatcher know when a train has hit a station. Because with RFID, I have the engine number, the caboose number. I put detectors on the cars. I actually might remove them. So when the train gets to the station, a window comes up on the computer that says locomotive number, blah, 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 and caboose. As soon as the caboose clears the station, I know it's left. Caboose has left the station at this time. And then the dispatcher will go put that in their book and use the paper from there. I'm hoping one day to use a text to speech program. So when a train goes past the station, I can get rid of the computer and it just a voice will come up saying train has arrived and then departed this station. Right now, I have it set up so there's a printer. When the train stops for its papers, the crew just has to grab it off the printer, keeping the dispatcher separated. I have started putting in signals at the two stations for train orders, but unfortunately, that work has all come to a stop. I'm using a system, car forwarding methods. I'm right now using train waybills. And I have a whole bunch of slides here, but I feel like I'm going to be preaching to the choir here. Everybody knows how train waybills work. They know how Jeremiah, I love to hate this program. It does absolutely everything, but I just hate how unprototypical car movements are. And I spent years trying to fine tune it, and then all of a sudden a car would start ping ponging between 2 yards back and forth. If anybody has a Mac computer, Switch List is a really good little program. It's session based and it's free. It only works on Macs. I love this program. But if you have a larger layout, it just can't quite keep up. This is the program I'm using right now. Is anybody interested in me talking about this?
yes, I think so. Go ahead.
Okay. So unfortunately, this is a paid program, but I really, really like it right now. Unfortunately, it's only computer based. So for someone like me, I'm all in the 1930s. It's a big gap from the paperwork I would love to do. I hear my 2-year-old calling my name outside the door. Gotta ignore him. Anyways, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to get rid of this here, and I'm actually going to bring this up. So this is live online. So each person would have this program. You do only the track layout operator has to pay the subscription. You join a session, and as long as you have the internet, this works. So it's Android, Apple, Raspberry Pi, whatever. This will work, and it's live. So I'm just going to run a very quick train here for you. We'll do our barge slip. And these are my staging tracks, basically. We can pull the consist. It shows that 8 cars on my train right now. And then we just move to the next stop, which is Waddington. And in Waddington, the cars that need to be picked up are in green. The cars that I need to set off my train are in red. If I can't set a car out, not enough space, whatever, you just click off spot, which I'll do for this one, and I'll set this one out. And the next train that comes through, that'll come up as yellow, and it'll just say move. If the train is capacity, because I run 8-car trains, I could pick up these two. And I could go my consist, and here's all the cars on my train listed, where they're going, the cargo, so empty, empty, empty. Everything's empty. Where they're going and what's going on. So then I could go to Lillian Creek, and you just continue along. I could pick up these cars, but they're going the wrong direction, so I'm not going to pick them up. Hillier Pole Company is a south-facing spur, so I can't actually set a car out there because I'm going north. Hit the off spot. That just tells the computer that the car is in Lillian Creek. The next southbound train will get that work order. And like I said, nice thing about this, it's live. So as soon as I do this, if the next train comes 30 seconds behind me, they're going to see that and continue the work. I won't keep running this train. But the Waybill program will say I could set it so the waybills will not turn at a customer for either a length of time that I submit, so I could say an hour or 2 hours, or amount of trains have to pass that point before they turn. So there's no, like in waybills, paper waybills, is it the layout host that turns them? Is it the train crew that turns it? Crew puts out that car, turns the waybill, and a train 10 seconds later going the opposite direction and picks up that car. The program is smart enough to say, hey, that just got set out. It stays there for X amount of time until it decides it's time to release that car. It's set up like traditional waybills when you set up the waybills, but you can have up to 12 directions on it. So you can have a car ping pong back and forth, left and right, up and down, and not see the same repeat. Also, it will assign a waybill to a new car when that cycle ends. So you're not going to have the same car doing the same customer in the same order every time. It will always be varied and changed. As you can see here, I got notes on here that these 2 cars sitting here are not to go on the passenger ferry. And that's why they're sitting here in Lillian Creek waiting to move. I like this program. I don't like how everyone has to have a device to run it when you're doing the 1930s, but so far this is the best program I've been able to find that works for me.
When you say each person has to have a device, does it also work on cell phones or?
Yeah. Right now I just showed you that on my iPad. Cell phones work good. It's set up so one waybill on my iPhone at least is the perfect screen, and you just scroll left to right to go through your waybills. If you're running 100-car trains, it'd probably be too much to shuffle through all the waybills. But for me, it's running 8 to 10, 12-car trains. I really like it. The subscription is, I think, $4 a month. I could be wrong, so don't quote me on that. But I also have found if you let your subscription lapse, it stays there. All your programming stays there. So when you run our operating sessions again, you just pay your subscription and it's all there again. So this here is actually the screen. I know it's really small, but what my dispatcher sees. And the bottom there, you can see is a list of each town where I have a reader. And then there's a track diagram around the name of each reader. I'm going to show you a train here, and it's going to flash red. If anyone runs this JMRI, they've seen this already. And there's my RFID reader. And so as we run this train, you'll see it'll flash red on the piece of track, and then where the top arrow is, SAPI in this case, it'll show the locomotive number, and then each car, and then the caboose. So I also have a bell that goes off to get the dispatcher's attention that there's a train going past that location.
Hmm.
Oh, well, I thought there was a question there for a second. That is the end of my slideshow. That was unfortunately way too fast, but I will take questions.
Micheal, does this fit in with your idea of 1930s car movements?
It does. It's better than JMRI. I'll say that much.
Hmm.
What I hate about Jeremiah is Jeremiah will move cars because it's funner to move cars.
Mm.
I am perfectly happy and okay if there's no cargo for a car for to sit there for 6 sessions in a row. I hate the ping ponging of cars back and forth.
Mm.
There was another program called Pro Track, which is now gone.
Uh-huh.
It was a pretty good program. Unfortunately, it was so buggy, just about nobody could use it. It's always a balance. Switch
I'm
lists would be
using,
the best way to do it. But,
yes. Well, I'm using, oh, go ahead.
sorry?
No, I was just saying I'm using Ship It, which is an excellent program. I've used it for 20 years and it's non-random. It depends on what the industries need and what they ship and what they need as consignments.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah, I've looked into Ship It. The problem with Ship It is I'm cheap and there's no free samples to test a program if I like
right,
it and then say,
right,
hey, I don't like it. Unfortunately, I'm in an area there's no other modelers, so I can't go to
right.
someone else's layout and test it. And
Okay.
I seem to remember it was in like the $100 level.
Uh, Not quite, but
It's up there, and I'm not willing to fork
it's up
out
there. Yeah,
that kind of
yeah.
money for something I don't know if I'm going to like.
Okay. If you're in Toronto, come by.
Okay, sounds good. Because like the computer screen does bug me, but I
uh,
like that a train could drop off a car because, like, say, programs which are session based. If the
mhm,
car goes to the top of Tiernan and it gets dropped off by a train, that car is not moving onward to its destination until the next session.
mhm,
Jeremiah kind of gets around that if you build each train separately and then get rid of each train separately. But still, somebody's got to be on the ball constantly building, getting rid of trains in the correct order to make things up. And once that train leaves the initial terminal, it doesn't get updated. Where this program, it doesn't matter where it is. If it's one town away and there's a car that suddenly becomes available, it'll pick it up if once that timer runs out or the train leaves it out. So I mean, everything we do is drawbacks, right?
mhm,
Pros and so the thing is, I've other than me playing with it, I've not done an operating session with this program. The last operating session I did was with Switch List, the Mac program, which
mhm.
was before the thing. You print out all your switch lists, you give it to everybody, they go do the work, they come back, and that's the end. Um, Jeremiah, I've never been satisfied. I've been playing with that program for years. There's some people on Jeremiah community that have been very helpful with me and have been patient. Whereas I want this to happen, and like, well, it doesn't do that. But we can do this to get around that.
Mhm.
And I've never been quite like I say. It's the program I love to hate. I use it for my dispatching, which, like I said, I hate that there's a computer screen for the dispatcher, and I'm hoping to do text to voice. At least it sounds like coming over telephone.
How many people here use one of these programs for like Ship It, for example?
I guess I'm the only one.
I use JMRI for operations.
Mhm.
Sorry, guys, I'm a continuous run guy.
Mhm.
I
Why
keep it all in my head, but it's getting harder, so sometimes I have to write down notes.
Are you using a program or just?
No, it's I have some railway switch lists, and I will trying to write them up. I used
Okay.
to just sort of say, okay, load empty, whatever it is, leave it for a certain amount of time. I'm just alone. I have just 2 cabs and that's it. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's a modest layout.
A question for Michael. What's your next step if you can be relocated somewhere?
Um, I really like my design. So it will be a new layout because it's not transportable, but it will be very similar. A little bit bigger, just to get away from the 22 radius curves on 2% grade. As anyone knows, it's a recipe for disaster for longer trains. So I've kept them down to 8 to 10 cars just for that reason. I like to be able to run longer trains. Way in the future, one thing I would love to do is I was looking at my layout, and because everything I've kept as real as possible, there is no fictional cargo my railway carries, to justify its purpose. The sawmills existed or used to exist. I mean, exist still. The ore cars, the ore is there. Those mines are there. The cattle, it's a huge cattle shipping area there. So everything, but when I was looking at my layout, I was like, my layout would probably shut down in the 80s just due to the highways coming in and just reality. My railway would be abandoned now. And then I was looking at a map one day, and the BC Rail used to take coal trains starting in the early 80s and take them from Tumbler Ridge to Prince George, and then they get interchanged with CN to go to Prince Rupert. My railway would actually cut off about 200 miles of track. So in the long future, I would like to maybe model my railway into the 80s into 90s. Now it has coal traffic. BC Rail was running the Royal Hodgson in the 90s. They were still running passenger service in the 90s. They were running the electrified Tumbler subdivision. So that would open up all sorts of interesting opportunities, since I'm a parent company of the PG, now BC Rail, to run big stuff and still be staying true to the thing I've been doing for 30 years. That would be, I think, really interesting to do, running these big coal trains and then have the Royal Hodgson come roaring through.
Michael, I just a comment here. I noticed your topography. I lived in BC for a little while. Topography is quite varied, and in that area. And I was wondering if an L girder and maybe your curves on splines would allow you to really show the scenery off below and above the railhead. Just thinking instead of just flat baseboards.
Yeah, like my right now, like my whole mountains. Funny, I didn't actually show me pictures of the mountains and that. It's I took 3/4 inch plywood, double layered it, and made a spline that way. So I have some there's unfortunately not built, but I have a trestle that's right now just a board. But one day, if I ever got to, it'd be about 2 feet deep and about 7 feet long. One of the valleys. So it's not a plywood Pacific, my layout, but yeah, there's some amazing scenery if that's what you're referring to.
I just thought it would give you. I'm thinking back to pictures of John Allen's, where he just blew people away by having the everything go up and down and around and the trains just had to fit through the scenery.
Yeah, yeah. I wish I took a picture before I took it down. Of you look down the hallway and it's mountains on either side, and it doesn't go to the floor, but the track, like on the one side, there's 2, 3, 4 layers of track as a zigzag. Does the circle, comes out, goes over a couple bridges, then disappears and does another loop. And as it goes, it works its way up. So I've done a lot of rock work, and I've gotten pretty good at it over the time. I take tin foil, put a lid, some kind of lid, to hold the edges up, sprinkle the tin foil up, make ridges and cracks, and then sometimes I'll like run lines if there's blasting, and build my own molds that way. And I built a couple molds that are like 2 feet by 1 foot, and just it goes up.
What's the footprint of the layout like?
The footprint. I did measure this when I did the outline, and my son filled it in. It is, I'm going to guesstimate here because I don't have it on hand, probably 20 feet. I'm going to go with 20 feet wide by about 30 feet long.
Oh.
Wow.
It's a decent sized room. It's like in the map, it doesn't show it, but it's a oddly shaped room with 3 doors in and out of it. So there's been some compromises. One section there, I have 3 layers to get to the outside door, and they're all drop-ins. So if there's a fire, I need to get in and out, just lift out the 3 on top of each other drop-ins to get in and out of that door.
I don't know if I missed it. Are you just going DC or DCC?
DCC, I use an NCE program. Program, but I got a 5 amp booster and a couple throttles. When I had done operating sessions, because I only have 2 throttles right now, I am connected to JMRI to run Y throttle with phones. The kids, when they play, they have their own devices and they get to use their phone to run trains.
Yeah.
Modern technology, eh?
Yeah. I gotta be honest, if I started over, I'd probably go with a DC for the amount of money I've spent on traditional DCC systems, with Arduino and that. I think I'd go that route if I ever had to start over.
If you move, you might have to.
Yeah, well, first, nice thing about DCC systems is they are easily transportable.
Yeah. True.
This photo here, the Dash 8 locomotive there, C ended a couple of years ago as a heritage unit. The nice thing about work for the railways, when it came through on a train I was on, I was able to park it next to the Quesnel shoving platform. Sometimes there's perks work with the railway, take a couple pictures, and then off we went again.
Micheal, you were talking about an RDIF system that you use to detect the trains.
Yeah, RFID.
Yeah. How does that work, or is there no short answer to that?
It's complicated. So there's a YouTube fellow, Little Wicked Railway out of England, and if nobody's looked at his videos, they're amazing. He just takes projects and he does one RFID sensor, but he goes through step by step how to do it. He also does signaling. He also does all this stuff, and that's what got me started. And I built 2 of his systems. The problem is they're one RFID, one Arduino into the computer, and then another RFID Arduino into the computer. And I was messing around, and somebody wants, I could find the information. A gentleman out of England is developing a system, and there's quite a few of them, but this guy was very reasonably priced, and he asked me to test it for him. And I'm right now running 8 sensors through his one box and into the computer, and I'm really happy with it. I'm kind of sad that was one of the first things that got taken down when the layout started getting taken down. Otherwise I'd show it. I can't remember how much money it was, but it was very reasonable compared to the commercial systems right now.
Okay, so it's a custom interface, not an Arduino interface?
It is a custom interface.
Okay.
It's Arduino based.
Okay.
I'm not very computer literate. I got a box to plug all these things in the order he told me to do it. So
yeah, I have been using RFID for some time, and I was given a system by Starfish Rail, and
okay.
Merge are developing that system. So I've been using it for the recording of to the schedule. Keith Martell is very aware of what I'm up to, but it was very successful.
Yeah,
it's very extremely.
My critique of RFID is there's like Starfish Rail, there's that American system that looks really good. And I can't remember the guy's name who's developing his own system, which I think is coming commercial pretty quick. The hardware's there. The software is what's lacking. Like you get this information, like you should be able to build switch lists off this. Or in my case, where I want to use it mostly for dispatch and say train X has arrived at this location. You know,
I agree.
that's where I find it's lacking right now.
The RFID system is good. It's a reliable system. As you say, it's the software behind it that is lacking. That's
because like I'm not a computer guy. I like I said, plugging this in, I plugged in where he told me to, and it worked, and it was great. If I won the lottery, I'd hire somebody to write a program because there seems to be so many possibilities. If you know exactly what car, what engine is at a given location in real time, you can do all sorts of neat stuff. It's just the know-how to write the programming to take this information and make it usable.
There is a guy in England, and his business was writing software for the stock exchange, actually. And he has a railway, and but he paid a company to develop the system for him. So he paid a lot of money for it, but work is going in the background to get the system we've got is good for N-gauge through to anything larger. Actually, you have to be careful that it doesn't interact with adjacent tracks and all the rest of it. So you've got to be quite tuned into radio frequency transmission and that sort of thing. Fortunately, but it's there. It's just the software behind it that's missing.
Yeah.
I guess my question about it was that you were talking about hearing a dispatcher say that this train was arriving at X. Well, the reality is if it's Arduino based, if it goes somewhere and triggers it to type a line on your screen, you should also be able to trigger a wave file that would actually play the sound.
Yeah, and that's what I want to happen.
Arriving.
I'm just not technology far enough to understand how to do that next step.
Yeah.
Like I have visions of like JMRI. It already knows what train and engine's connected to. It already knows that train with the RFID is at a given location. So it has all the information. It's writing the code to put that information into an audio file that says train, because it should be able to say engine number, blah, 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 which it knows it's assigned through operations. It's assigned to this train. So train number 5 with engine number 432 is at Tiernan.
Yep.
And then the dispatcher, like almost, as close as you can get to the real thing, writes it down in his book or writes it down on his train sheet.
Yeah, I think you're close to that possibility with Arduino. It could do that. Yeah.
Are you volunteering, Walter?
No, I'm just saying that I've done in the past where I've had things triggered by a detector to actually run a sound off a trigger. And so, as I said, I think you're close to that target. So
Next phase.
Anything? Go to my notes here. So
Sorry, the one site you mentioned, was it Little Wicked Railways?
Little Wicket Railway, which is it's good for dumb people like me. It's very beginner based.
Okay.
And even has at the end, this is the products and where he bought them from off Amazon.
Interesting.
Yeah, I really like the guy. He hasn't really done anything for a couple years, useful in my opinion. But if you go back like 4 or 5 years ago, he's got some really interesting stuff.
Yeah. There's a new note here about hang on a sec, chat. Little Wicket is excellent. from Ian Clark. Little Wicket Railway, Mark Christopher. Sorry, Christopher, we can hardly hear you there.
Oh, sorry, I wasn't speaking.
There.
I just dropped in.
Okay. Good. Any other questions for Michael? Comments? Whatever your ritual is, we're all in. Okay. Well, thank you very much, Michael. It was very interesting.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you for coming and talking to us. And I'm glad you didn't get called.
Yep. I was going to say, if anybody has any other questions about prototypical railways, I could probably help them out. My also big fascination is the Nakusp and Slocan Railway, which anyone knows the work of Mark Dance with the barge on the lakes.
Right.
I've done a lot of work with that, and me and another historian have built an interactive map from building the railway in. Oops. Am I still here? Yes, I'm still here.
Yes, you're still here.
Building the Google Maps of all the original tracks that we could find, industries with maps with links you can click. And you want me to talk about that one? I could talk about that one for an hour or two, probably. So if anyone has any questions on that stuff, because the Custom Slocan is such an interesting little railway that survived into the 1989.
Right.
That was just from a bygone era that somehow survived.
Yeah. Oh, we may have you back for another session then.
Right.
Great.
Right.
Anything else before we call it a night? Well, again, thank you everyone for coming out, and we appreciate it.